And we're back with my final guest of the season, Miss Susan Kees. Susan, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in. Now, Susan, you did something that is pretty extraordinary. Nobody can take your crown on this one. You've written the very first Telluride hiking guide.
Yes, I did.
That wasn't just in the brain of some miner somewhere or
No.
something like that.
I got lost everywhere when I first moved here and started hiking, so I made notes. And then I interviewed miners who had lived here their whole lives, and most of them had walked all of those trails. Nobody called it a hike, it was just going to work. And
Yeah.
I found that fascinating, so I continue to write short biographies of people that lived here, miners, and connected those with the trails that I love to hike.
And you did this. I'm gonna take a step back for a second and say, when did you do this? We're not talking about the 90s. We're talking about 70s.
Yeah, the 70s.
Yeah.
Well, I came here in 72, and I got lost everywhere. And I made notes about it to...
Were you the only person doing that at that time?
The only person I knew. I don't
Okay.
know. You know, at that time, there were occasional people who would accompany me on some hikes, but in general, I was hiking by myself with a baby.
Oh,
So,
that's great.
yeah.
So technically, this is your eldest or your
My youngest.
Your youngest,
Yeah.
yeah. So your youngest is actually kind of sort of co-wrote the book with you.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. And then so explain to me exactly how. Are you just wandering around and then you go you find the miners in the town at the bar or whatever it is and you go what about this thing, where was I, that kind of thing, or do you ask them beforehand? You say, I want to go up that way.
No, I asked them. Actually, it didn't even relate to hiking specifically. It was their biographies that I was interested in. But it did turn out that they had walked to work or ridden a mule, and I was fascinated by it because the women were hiking in things like that look like high heel shoes to me.
There you go.
And I couldn't believe it. I'm all dressed in my hiking boots and water and ready to go, and there they are in dresses and high heels walking around.
They
So,
would probably be pretty horrified at the fact that we do the Imogen Pass run now.
maybe.
They were just trying to get to work.
Yeah.
So you we had talked beforehand, and I asked you, how many of the trails did you name, and you said you didn't really name very many of them.
I took most of the names from the maps,
Okay.
and I tried not to personalize them. There are a couple of trails that some people wanted their personal names on, and I didn't. I mentioned those, but I didn't call the trail that name.
Yeah. So with that sort of said, I want to say one of my favorite trails is Owl Creek.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Owl Gulch.
Owl Gulch. Sorry. I see. This is why I mentioned that, because the trail is called 4 or 5 different things. It's an offshoot of the Judweeby.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
And you're calling it Owl Gulch because that's Owl Gulch.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. But
Yes.
it's been called what?
Well, it has been called John's. John is the first, John McCarran, another psychotherapist in town, and Jane Wattenpaw walked that trail multiple times with shovels and so forth, trying to make it a little easier to walk. And then others have come along and called it Clay's Way,
Yeah.
or and like I said, there's a couple different names: Clay's Way and John's and Owl Gulch. And I felt that Owl Gulch was, the geographic name, and that's what I had to
Good.
put.
I'm
So-
almost there. Owl Creek is what I call it, but I like.
Yeah.
I tell people Owl Gulch, and people go, "You mean locals?"
Yeah,
Which
locals.
is now a thing
Yeah,
that they call
now-
it, the locals
right,
weeby or whatever,
yeah,
right? That's a
yeah.
new one.
And that's a new name for me.
Yeah.
For the next edition, I should put that in.
Have you done? You must have had to do multiple editions.
I
right?
have,
Yeah.
yes. The first edition was done pretty quickly, and I didn't have any help with that first edition. And once I saw it published, I was horrified because there would be thes left out, or not a capital at the beginning of a sentence, and so forth. Things that I thought the publisher would take care of, but didn't. And so I quickly wrote the second edition, and that was basically to clean up some of the obvious grammatical or spelling errors that nobody else cared about. And then I wrote the third edition, because so many of the trails had changed, and also my husband learned how to use a GPS, and we were putting GPS points in the third edition. And I had to do hikes 6 or 7 times to make sure we had the right GPS, or that I had written it properly, or things like that. So it was a lot of fun.
Are you is there a favorite hike that you have? I guess it's hard.
I can tell you this: the hike that I'm on is my favorite hike.
Oh,
whenever
look
I'm
at
on
that.
it, yeah. So, but if I were to recommend to people big hikes, I would say the Sheridan Crosscut and the.
Did you do Via Ferrata?
No, I've never done.
Was that an actual? Was that a thing that is a hike for you?
I don't put it. I haven't got it in the hiking guide, and I'm afraid of heights. I hate that kind of thing, and I've done things like that with my husband, who has always been very, very careful with me, and had me roped where nobody else was on a hike. But the Via Ferrata is out of my comfort zone.
Gotcha.
So,
it's not even. Don't even go. It's
Yeah.
not in the book.
Well, go if you want, but make sure you know what you're doing.
And what do you think? The Telluride Mountain Club came earlier this year, and they talked about they finally blazed a new trail from the bottom of Black Bear. From the bottom of the road.
Oh, they're
there.
working on that.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
working on that. What do you think about that?
Well, my husband has for years been trying to get the county to do a trail along the creek up there.
Yeah.
And I think it's great, but what I've seen on the road as a connection is not the trail that I or my husband had in mind, and that would be to continue on up along the creek. But I'm happy it's there.
Yeah.
New trails are always a blessing.
Well, it'll be nice too as the traffic has increased from the
exactly.
four-wheel drive vehicles
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah, I couldn't believe the traffic this summer.
Well, it's cool here.
Yeah.
It's not a lot of places. Is it cool in the summer?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We're lucky.
So, Susan, I'm gonna leave the viewer. I just want to say with one last thing, which is if you were to Telluride has changed a lot in the years that you've lived here.
Yes.
40, 50 years, something like
Yeah,
that, right?
close to that.
Yeah. So, what is the thing that hasn't changed about Telluride that for you is like?
The mountains,
Yeah.
the people that I have befriended over the years. It's a spiritual place, and that hasn't changed for me.
Great. It's October now, folks. You got to get up into the mountains. Go pick up the Telluride Hiking Guide. Don't buy it on Amazon. We have a local store. If you're somewhere other than Telluride, then fly to Telluride, buy it at the local store, and then go hiking.
Absolutely.
You'll see Susan. She's still living in town, in and around. So just ask her which way to go if you get lost.
Yeah. And don't ever worry about it. If you only can do part of a trail, that's better than none. And age is not a factor. I'm 78 and a half, and I expect to keep hiking.
Look out for the next edition of that book, everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Susan, for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's head over. Speaking of hiking, the Telluride Mountain Club is going to take Tim and Peter up to the Via Ferrata. Not in the book, but they're going to hang right off the side of that thing, and you're going to get to watch them there. And then we're going to have a new Miner's Minute, followed by Peter sitting down with Dr. Alan Safdie to talk about some health tips.